Hello, and well, in this video I have the Italian Focke-Wulf 190. This is the G55 Series 1, and this is the non-premium version of the G55 with the 320mm cannon. I currently have both of the G55 spaded. This is the second one of the two. This is the one with the 320mm, whereas the first one, the Series 0, which I will take a look at both of these when we get back into the hangar, by the way, Series 0 has 120mm and 450 cals. So anyway, actually as of this match, this was the very last match that I flew in the G55S, and the G55 Series 1, before I spaded it. My last upgrade was the last of the bomb pylons. And, well, in this match we're going to be basically showing how I would recommend the G55 be flown. This is overall. This is not for just this variant. And you will have been tipped off by the fact that I said the Italian Focke-Wulf 190. Now, those of you who have already played the G55 are already looking at me like, what the fuck are you talking about, Tiger? You're a fucking insane individual. What the fuck is wrong with you? This is not a 190 at all. It kind of is. The thing about the 55, the G55, is that, yes, it is very maneuverable. But that's only in the very first couple of turns, like the 190. In a turn, it does not have a lot of energy retention, like the 190. It also becomes extremely hard to maneuver at low speed, like the 190. It is also weighed down by an absolute metric ton of armament, like the 190. And it also has a very good climb rate and dive speed, like the 190. So, in terms of maneuverability, first off, where would I rate this plane? I would say, in terms of the first couple of turns, pretty much the same as a Zero or a Spitfire. But it doesn't do vertical maneuvers at all. And this is for all of the G55s. It's not very good in vertical turning fights. In the horizontal, it can at least... In the horizontal, it can sustain in fights, but it's not really the greatest with it. Like I said, it loses a lot of energy in a turn. And those big wings definitely do not help, and that poor P-47 never saw what was coming. There's a P-51 down here, by the way, that we're gonna kick the teeth in on before we head back up to altitude. There we go, there's kill number 2. I am using stealth belts with both the 20 mils and the 50 cals, by the way. And yes, by the way, this thing has 3 20mm cannon, MG151s, 2 mounted in the wings and 1 mounted down the prop up, and then 2 50 caliber machine guns firing synchronized through the propellers, mounted on top of the engine cowling. And you can see the holes on top of the cowling for it right there. The 20mm in the wings both have 200 rounds per gun, and the gun mounted in the propeller hub has 250 rounds total. Has 250 rounds. The machine guns have 800 rounds total, so 400 per gun, and they're actually not bad. They're actually pretty reliable as far as non-American 50 cals go, and I actually kind of stalled myself here. And by the way, for those of you who play Sim, this thing has a very, very good cockpit. Very good all-around visibility. And right here, I did not see that HE-111 until I zoomed in. So, yeah, I was just kind of looking around for what it was, and it was this HE-111. Like I said, I saw him when I zoomed in. I didn't see him originally. And I was kind of looking in his direction, but anyway, kill number 3, he actually tried to go into a dive, but it didn't really save him. So anyway, so far there really hasn't been much on how you fly the G55 in this match. We're about to get to it. So, how would I recommend people fly the G55? Well, I don't recommend that you fly it the way everyone else is flying it down on the deck, by aka getting into turn fights with it. The thing about the G55 right now is that due to the lack of experience and knowledge about this aircraft that other pilots have, keep in mind, only people who have bought the G55 can fly it. So, due to that, the only people who can actually have any form of a chance against the G55 is the people who have already flown it, aka the people who have bought it. This is a very, very small number of people in terms of the majority versus the minority. The people who own a G55 are definitely in the minority. And because of this, people are getting away with a lot more than they should. Getting into a turn fight at low altitude in this thing is not the best idea. But due to lack of experience with these aircraft, G55 pilots can pretty much do whatever the hell they want. And by the way, that's how you take a BV-238 down with having almost no damage sustained whatsoever. And that's how you take down a BV in general. So anyway, this is basically how I recommend flying the G55 as a bomber hunter. You want to fly this thing as an intercept fighter, like a 190 does. That is where this aircraft excels. It has a very, very good climb rate. The armament is absolutely devastating. It's in all the right spots, and if you have your gun convergence set to 400 meters, your shots will be pretty much on target all the way out to 600 meters, or maybe even 7 or 8 if you're a good enough shot. Not only that, but if you're good at using cloud cover and you know how to detect engine sounds and you know where they're coming from, doing that is very, very easy. Now there's a P-38 over here guarding a HE-111, and he's about to shoot down this poor Yak-9T in this head-on pass, but I am able to, at the very least, shoot down the P-38. And yeah, unfortunately the Yak-9T was set on fire and he's going down. But anyway, this is very, very simple in terms of how you actually fly the aircraft. Yes, you can shoot down the enemy fighters at altitude when you get up here if you do not have enough fighter support. However, you do not want to get into sustained dogfights. You do not have the energy retention to sustain those dogfights, and you do not have the acceleration to run away from those dogfights. That's another problem with the G55, is it does not have a very good acceleration rating at low altitude. At high altitude, on the other hand, like up here at 5,000 meters, it's a lot better. And I'm going to go ahead and interrupt this and go back to the hangar, because that was pretty much my match. And I'll talk a little bit more about this when we get back into the hangar. Alright, and here we are back in the hangar. And here is the stats of a spaded Series 1 G55. As you can see, there's the guns, 320 millimeters. X-ray shows one straight down the propeller hub, and then the two in the wings. And actually, you know what? I'll get onto that in a bit. So yeah, no armor at all. All the modifications, there's the bomb loads, pretty horrible. And here is the 4.3 BR G55, the G55 Series 0. This is the one with 4 50 caliber machine guns and one 20mm cannon. And if you didn't know better, you would actually be forgiven for thinking this thing only had 2 50 cals and that they got a typo. But no, it actually does have 4. The other 2 are mounted underneath the engine cowling. That is very clever design right there. I did not originally spot that when I looked at this thing. So this thing has 5 nose-mounted guns, 4 50 calibers, 2 in the top, 2 in the bottom, and then one 20mm firing through the prop hub. Obviously 250 rounds for the 20mm, and 300 rounds for each of the 50 cals. And this is the standard G55, or the premium G55S, and you probably already know this thing inside and out for all of those of you who have it and who have fought it. Yep, there's the inside, no 50 cals, but a fuckload of fuel tanks, which we will get onto in a minute. But anyway, yes, I do not recommend flying these aircraft as regular fighters. The G55 Series 0, you can do a little bit more in that thing than you can in these two. It's not the best bomber hunter, but you can certainly shoot bombers down with them. With it. These two, on the other hand, the 55S and the Series 1, are very good bomber hunters. Now, that 23.8 meters per second climb rate is not very accurate. And the reason for that is this thing is surprisingly light for the amount of... Well, I'm not going to say light, but it's very aerodynamic. And what that basically means is that this thing actually has a higher climb rate because of how smooth it is, because of the fact that it has a very, very powerful engine, by the way. Yeah. This is basically the same engine that's in the 109s. And it's a very good engine. But yeah, because of this thing's aerodynamics, it actually has a very, very good climb rate and very good energy retention in a climb. Well, it has, I'm not going to say good energy retention, but you guys can probably understand what I'm trying to say. It can get up to altitude very, very quickly because of the engine and how aerodynamic it is. So that rate of climb on the stat card is off, but not by much. I'd probably say it's more like around 24 or 25. But that's not really anything major. Although at 4.7 that is very good. 26.4 on the G55S I think is accurate, although I haven't tested that theory. The 55S is more maneuverable than the Series 1, although that is only because it is lighter, because it doesn't have the 50 calibers. So anyway, yeah. Use these things as bomber hunters. That is really what I recommend. And this is where people who have flown the G55S, and any Italian aircraft for that matter, are looking at me like, wait, you're crazy. That's the dumbest thing you could possibly do. And those of you who don't have Italians, there's a good reason for that. These things are flying fuel cans. Seriously, in my experience, if you take one hit and it does not immediately set you on fire, you are the luckiest son of a bitch on the face of the earth. Honest to God. It really, if you're not instantly set on fire the second you get hit, you're lucky. You're the most, just cut your losses, get out of there now. But here's the thing about hunting bombers. If you're putting yourself in a position where you can get shot, you're not doing it right. If you're putting yourself in a position and you're giving the enemy perfect shots at you, you're doing it wrong. That's not the plane's fault, that's your fault. And if you'll notice, during that entire match, I never gave the enemy bomber pilots an accurate shot at me. And the reason is because I know the weaknesses of this aircraft. It's very, very flammable, even more so than the Zeros. In fact, in terms of how durable this thing's fuel tanks are, I would compare them to the Typhoon, which anybody who has flown a Typhoon is already nodding their heads like, oh god, I remember exactly what he's talking about. Everyone who's flown a Typhoon, you can go and ask them. They already know exactly what I'm talking about here. And they will agree with me. So yes. Now, I got lucky with the BV-238. Obviously, he didn't have a aced crew. Either that or his 20mm gunner was drunk. So I was very lucky to not get hit with a 20mm shell in the fuel tank. But if I could have come from a different... if I didn't have to worry about that MiG-3, which is what I went head-on with before I shot at the BV, was a MiG-315. If that MiG-3 wasn't there, I would have dove, gotten underneath the BV-238, pulled up into an angle from the side where I could get a shot into his wings without him getting his gunners trained on me, or at the very least only getting one gunner trained on me. That is how I would have preferred to attack him. And that's really the best way to kill a BV-238 with any aircraft, is to get underneath him, pull up, and shoot into his wings. Now, as it was, I still picked the correct shot anyway. I got a couple of lucky fuel tank fires that ended up, and a lot of damage on his wing, that ended up sending him careening into the ground. However, even with that, I normally would not have wanted to take that chance because of the lack of armor period on this plane. Another thing is that if you take any hit to the fuselage and your pilot is not instantly killed, you are also very lucky. This thing has no armor at all. Yeah, sure, it has armor behind the pilot, like behind and below him, and then a bulletproof glass panel. It doesn't exist. The second you take a hit, your pilot dies. If you take a hit from the side, your pilot's dead. Just no ifs, ands, or buts. Your pilot's dead. And not only that, but this thing is very fragile, like I said. Those of you who are fighting G55s, if you can get the first shot off, he's dead. There's no way in hell he can win. If you can get the first shot and the first couple of hits, he's dead. Because those first couple of hits are going to go straight into the fuel tanks, or they're going to go straight into the pilot, and it's over. And he is going to burn down very, very quickly. So, that's how you shoot down a G55. You need to get the first shot, and you need to make sure that you get the first hits, because if he can turn away and he can get on your ass, you're dead. But if you get the first hits, you win. Now, for those of you who are flying G55s, and those of you who are looking forward to flying G55s, don't let them get this. Don't let a fighter get that opportunity. The way that you need to fly this thing is you need to be high and you need to be fast. The Italian aircraft, I have noticed, are very, very good at high altitude. Especially, well, in arcade at least. In realistic, I have no idea. But in arcade, they are very, very good at high altitude. Their acceleration and their level flight speed up there is much better than it is down on the deck. Up around like 4,000, 5,000 meters, these things excel up there. And that's where you need to be in these aircraft. Not only that, but the way you attack is, if you're going up against a bomber, you get yourself into position where he cannot shoot you, or at the very least, he is not going to have the capability of massing his firepower against you. And if you're going up against a fighter, you boom and zoom. That is how you kill fighters in this thing. You do not just get into turn fights. You need to start booming and zooming. You need to get used to this. So, that's probably going to upset a lot of you G55 pilots, but look, when people start learning the weaknesses of your aircraft, they will exploit them. I have seen countless G55 pilots getting into turn fights at low altitude and shot down because they were ganged up on. If you keep on doing that, people will learn, and people will exploit that. People will start ganging up on these things because they are very vulnerable in low altitude, low speed turning fights. So, there you go. For those of you who want to kill these things, that's how you kill them. For those of you who want to fly these things, that's how you fly them. So, I am going to go and fly my so used to calling it MC, but no, my C205N, my very, very beautiful new little toy, and I will see you guys later.